before the riot. Let's dig deeper and bring in Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. He's from the state of Illinois and a member of the House January 6th committee. Congressman, thank you for being here. Based on those three subpoenas, those are Don Jr.'s boys. Does that mean the next people you're going to be looking to subpoena are Don Jr. and Kim Guilfoyle?
Well, obviously, I don't want to, reveal the next steps. It's fluxes every day in terms of if we learn new information, where does our focus go? How do we build that case? But I mean, certainly, I think there's no doubt, looking at the role that Kimberly Guilfoyle played, that Don Jr. played, it would be obvious we would need some information from them or people that would know things about what they were doing. We all saw the selfie video of them, dancing and laughing after the president's speech. All we want is answers. I mean, it's not like, there's anything nefarious here besides let's find out what the truth is, and we will. I'm convinced that the January 6th committee will get the truth. Now, the question is, will people want to accept the truth or conspiracy? And that's a whole nother issue.
Okay, but that is the issue, because you're not going to get any answers unless these people face consequences. Just having to testify, it's just a show, and they don't care.
Well, I mean, look, as far as any consequences, that really is up to DOJ. We don't have law enforcement authority. We can bring people in to testify, and we can produce evidence and information and refer that to the DOJ. And I certainly think we intend to do that. But keep in mind, really, our job is to say, what is the rot that led up to January 6th? And what's been happening since? Show that to the American people, because even if 30% or whatever the number is of people that think January 6th was legit, their kids won't. And what's important is that they get the right answer, they get the right narrative to all of this. And we'll do everything we can to get there. It'll be up to the DOJ on what they want to prosecute or what they don't.
Most people, when they hear they could get subpoenaed, that's really scary. Yet Jim Jordan and Scott Perry say they're not going to cooperate with your committee. If you were to subpoena them, then what? What would be the actual course of action? Because they don't seem scared.
Yeah, I mean, that's information I don't fully know yet. There's uniqueness in when members of Congress are subpoenaed by a congressional committee, only because I haven't seen it before in my career. But I think if you're a member of Congress and you have information before a committee, first off, you should be in front of us voluntarily. This is the people's house. This is the people's inquiry. And if you don't do that, if we have to subpoena you, we'll do that. And I think, ultimately, the interesting thing with people like Jim Jordan is the House has ways to compel testimony or to be able to punish in a way that we can't with anybody else. Obviously, we can refer somebody to DOJ for contempt. When it comes to somebody like a member of Congress, there's things on committee. There's obviously, various, perks, if you call it, that can be used. I'm not saying we're going to do that. I'm saying those are quells that we can use if we need to.
Can I ask what this is like for you? You're a Republican. You're a member of Congress. I'm guessing Jim Jordan, not long ago, I don't know if he was your friend, but he was certainly your colleague. What is it like for you to be a Republican member of Congress right now?
It's really it's disappointing. I think what's the most disappointing to me is that I thought there were people that had red lines that, truth to some level actually mattered. When I see somebody, refusing to cooperate in front of the committee, it's like, what are you trying to hide? When I see members of Congress, when I see Ted Cruz, pushing this idea of the Ray Epps conspiracy, which, by the way, has been a conspiracy almost taken as gospel for about 2 or 3 months, that somehow Ray Epps was an FBI agent, and somehow everybody is so dumb that even if he was an FBI agent, which he wasn't, that one FBI agent incited everybody to do something like tear up the Capitol. I mean, what do you think of your own base and voters if you think they're that gullible? But what happens is the reaction is always some circular argument to come back to point out something different, and people will accept whatever reality feels good to them. All I can do is tell the truth, because ultimately, these people pushing these lies and conspiracies, J.D. Vance this morning is pushing this Ray Epps idea. They will pay for that someday. They will pay for that because the truth always prevails.
I know you want to hear from former Vice President Mike Pence. Have you reached out to him personally to try to convince him to talk? You and Liz Cheney have the best chances of making that happen. No,
I haven't. I can't speak for Liz. I have no idea if she has or hasn't. for me, I'm always careful. I want to go through the committee process on this because I think it's important that it maintains that way. I would love to see the vice president obviously testify, even if it's just written answers to questions. I recognize he played an important role that day, and I think regardless of your feelings of the vice president, he certainly could have made this situation way worse. He can come in and actually, I think, adjudicate his role in history very well, but we'll get the information we need. I'm very confident of that.
Republican Senator Mike Rounds, I know you've been thinking about this, talking about it this week. He told the truth. He said that the 2020 election was fair and that President Biden won. He told a fact. Yet Trump attacked him and attacked him. Watch this.
I think as Republicans, we owe it to tell the truth. And I think integrity matters. And so, in my opinion, if we want to keep the confidence of our supporters and our voters, then we have to be honest with them.
Congressman, you and Senator Rounds are part of only a handful of Republicans willing to tell the truth. Trump is still pushing the big lie. You see more and more Republicans either pushing it or staying silent about it. How frustrating is this for you to realize there is no place for the truth in the GOP anymore?
It's frustrating. It's angering. Senator Rounds said the right thing, and I get it. I mean, all you have to do is look at Twitter and see people, nobody should be praised for doing the basic minimum, the right thing. Yeah, I typically agree with that. But in this current environment, what Senator Rounds did was actually, unfortunately, brave. And he should be commended for that because that can be something that can spread. But, yeah, I mean, that's the moment we're in. People, every member of Congress and senator, I think if you put them on that CIA juice, right, like the truth serum, they're going to tell you they know Joe Biden won, but they're scared to death. They're scared of their own voters to tell them the truth. Like, what kind of leadership is that? What kind of leadership is that? That's not leadership at all. That's fear. That's a spirit of fear permeating your soul. That is not leading.
Yes, we saw Ted Cruz tell the truth about January 6th and then get spanked by Tucker Carlson, and he crawled back. Then lastly, I just want to ask you then is there a place for you in the GOP right now?
Do I feel like it? Not really. I mean, I'm going to maintain my Republican identity. I'm a Republican. I've been one since I was 6, and I'm going to fight for the soul of the party. But, yeah, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like that it certainly feels like I'm a member of the Republican family. There's a lot of people that are silent that I think agree with me. We just need people to speak out because I got to tell you, silence is complicit, and silence will allow the conspiracy to infect this party in a way, way worse than we've even seen now, which is frightening.
The fact that you were a Republican since you were 6 years old means there's a lot more I want to discuss with you about your childhood. We just don't have time today.
Yeah.
Coming up, Republican since he was 6.